Welcome to Beauty in Stories. This is a space where short, meaningful tales invite us to explore life's deep lessons and the beauty of emotions. Each story becomes a journey to listen, reflect, and rediscover values that are often overlooked in the busyness of life. Join us as we uncover inspiration, joy, and connection in these stories every day. And now, let's dive into today's story, Boundless Happiness. In a small hospital on the outskirts of the city, where the air was always damp and the silence of the walls seemed to echo the unspoken suffering of those lying in treatment, there were two men enduring the final days of their lives. Both were afflicted with terminal illnesses, their bodies frail and weakened. Yet their spirits were not entirely broken. They no longer had desires or ambitions, only quiet sighs, weary eyes, and gentle words meant to comfort each other through the endless pain. One of the men, Ivan Petrovich, struggled with relentless coughing fits, and his illness had so ravaged his body that he could scarcely sit up. He lay in one corner of the room, his face turned toward a cold, gray wall. The other man, Andrei Fedorovich, shared a similar fate, though he was fortunate enough to be allowed to sit up for 1 hour each day. His bed was positioned near the room's only window, where the pale light of the afternoon would filter through, offering a fragile connection between the approaching darkness of death and the last flickers of desire still lingering within him. Andrei Fedorovich was the only one able to grasp even a tiny fragment of hope in that dim world. Each afternoon, when the sun began to sink low, he was permitted to sit up. And for that one precious hour, he would gaze out the window. The view outside was like a living painting, something he could experience with all his senses, even though his body had become too weak to engage with life itself. It was a small park with a peaceful pond. Ducks swam lazily across the surface, sometimes quarreling, other times resting in gentle ripples, as if they too were savoring the freedom life still offered. Children played with paper boats, their laughter ringing out, pure and carefree, as though they had no knowledge of the suffering of the sick in the hospital. In the distance, tall trees stretched their boughs in shaded elegance, and lovers strolled hand in hand, lost in the rhythm of life that never ceased.
"What I see out there,"
Andrei would say, his voice filled with quiet delight,
"is truly beautiful. You can't imagine it. Ivan, I see children playing by the pond, couples walking hand in hand, and the birch trees swaying in the breeze. It makes me feel like I still have a place in this world."
Though Ivan Petrovich could see nothing but the cold gray wall before him, he listened intently, his heart full of empathy. He could feel the warmth of life in every word Andrei spoke. In that bleak hospital room, these descriptions were rays of light, an emotional balm for him. They spoke as though the world outside was still full of beauty, as though life was still a journey worth taking. Each day passed in this way, with Ivan living in Andrei's stories, in a world he could no longer see. Yet, somehow, Andrei's words made him feel as if he were living, experiencing life through a different sense. In some inexplicable way, their shared connection became the source of life for both men. Then one day, after Andrei had spoken of a grand parade passing by the park, of the vibrant scene of people joyously moving to lively music, Ivan felt an indescribable longing. He dreamed of a beautiful world. A world where beauty, love, and happiness still existed, even though his own body no longer had the strength to reach it. The next day, the nurse came in with a jug of water. When she entered, she found Andrei lying still. He had passed away. Like a dry leaf falling from its branch in the wind. Another life had quietly slipped away. Its passing unforeseen. The nurse informed Andrei's family and made preparations to take him. Some time later, when the room returned to its quiet solitude, Ivan asked to be moved closer to the window. His vision had long since faded. But in his heart, he still yearned to see the world that Andrei had described. The nurse agreed. After a few moments of effort, Ivan gathered all his remaining strength and sat up to look outside. But before his eyes was only a cold, unbroken wall. There was no sign of life. No beautiful scenery, nothing that Andrei had described. Ivan was stunned. As if he had been deceived. As though everything his friend had said had been nothing but an illusion.
Nurse, what is this?
Ivan asked, his voice trembling.
Why was he able to see all those things? He described it as if you were living in another world.
The nurse looked at him with a gentle sadness. Her voice soft with compassion as she answered.
Mr. Andrei could see nothing. Sir, he was completely blind. Everything he described, he imagined. To offer you a glimpse of another world, a world he could no longer see. He didn't see the pond, the children, or the lovers. But he wanted to share with you all the joy, all the beauty of life.
In that moment, a painful, profound truth washed over Ivan. He understood now that happiness is not something we see with our eyes, but something we feel through actions, through sharing, through kindness and care for one another. Andrei, though blind, had been able to see life more clearly than those who could see with their eyes. And this, he realized, was the greatest miracle of all. The lesson asterisk. Happiness is not something we can see with our eyes, but something we can feel through sharing and kindness. Mr. Andrei, though blind, used his stories to bring joy to his friend. True happiness does not come from material things or external appearances, but from giving without expecting anything in return. When we share, happiness grows, and suffering lessens. It is through this sharing that we find the true meaning of life. Thank you for joining Beauty in Stories for today's tale. I hope these moments have brought you meaningful insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any upcoming stories. See you in the next one.
Goodbye!